It's a peculiar human tendency, isn't it, to search for external causes for our internal unease. We point fingers at circumstances, at other people, at the grand, impersonal forces of fate. Yet, what if the most formidable and influential force shaping your existence resides not in the world around you, but within the unlit corridors of your own mind? Have you ever paused, truly paused, to question the origin of your deepest convictions, your most persistent desires, your recurring patterns of behavior? What if the script you believe you're authoring, the life you think you're consciously choosing, is, in fact, being subtly directed by an unseen puppeteer, a silent director dwelling in the depths of your psyche since your very first breath? This isn't conjecture born of late-night philosophical musings, nor is it the premise of some fantastical tale. It is a central tenet of depth psychology, a field that dares to explore the vast, often unsettling landscapes of the inner world. And if there's one pioneer whose name is synonymous with this courageous exploration, it is Carl Gustav Jung. Perhaps you find yourself ensnared in cycles of disappointment, watching opportunities crumble, or relationships inexplicably sour. Maybe there's a persistent hum of dissatisfaction, a sense that an invisible current pulls you away from your aspirations, even when all outward signals suggest progress. This internal saboteur, this gravitational pull towards familiar pain, could well be the voice of your unacknowledged self, the resonance of ancient patterns, the stirrings of a collective human inheritance demanding your attention. To dismiss these inner dynamics as inconsequential is to navigate a treacherous terrain with eyes deliberately shut. The wounds you incur, the patterns you perpetuate, the suffering you endure, you might label these as misfortune, as the universe conspiring against you. But Jung offered a different lens, a more empowering, albeit challenging perspective. He wasn't merely a clinician of the mind. He was an archaeologist of the human spirit, venturing into the deepest strata of our being, where few had dared to tread. What he unearthed there possesses the power to fundamentally alter your understanding of who you are and why you do what you do. This exploration isn't about a dry recitation of biographical facts or a condensed academic summary. Consider it, instead, an invitation to gaze into a mirror, perhaps for the first time, at aspects of yourself you've instinctively or purposefully avoided. Be warned, though. Once the insights of Jung take root in your understanding, the world and your place in it will never quite look the same. You'll begin to discern the subtle choreography of your inner life, to recognize the hidden figures that influence your choices, and perhaps, most profoundly, to realize that the most significant battles are not waged against external adversaries, but against the unacknowledged parts of your own being. The revelation, however, is not a sentence to perpetual conflict. This internal adversary, once understood and engaged with, can transform into your most potent ally. But this alliance demands courage, a willingness to confront the uncomfortable. So, prepare yourself, for what follows is an earnest attempt to illuminate the core of Jung's wisdom, an illumination that promises to reshape your self-perception. Carl Jung, born in Switzerland in the latter part of the 19th century, was not a psychologist content with surface-level adjustments or societal conformity. His ambition was far grander, to comprehend the soul in its entirety. He was raised in an environment steeped in religious tradition and quiet contemplation, experiences that likely sowed the seeds for his lifelong fascination with the symbolic and the numinous, those aspects of human experience that transcend rational explanation. He was, for a time, the anointed successor to Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis. Yet, Jung's intellectual honesty and expansive vision inevitably led to a schism. While Freud anchored the psyche primarily in repressed libidinal drives and personal history, Jung perceived a vaster, more ancient territory. He saw the human mind as a repository of millennia of experience, a tapestry woven with myths, symbols, and archetypal forces that connect us to our remotest ancestors. For Jung, the psyche was not a static machine to be fixed, but a vibrant, dynamic ecosystem, alive with tensions between conscious and unconscious, light and shadow, logic and intuition. He posited that our suffering, our neuroses, were not mere dysfunctions, but urgent messages from the deeper self, signaling a deviation from our authentic path, and a call towards greater wholeness, a process he termed individuation. His analytical psychology wasn't about excising the problematic parts of you, but about fostering a dialogue with them, integrating them, bringing the hidden into the light of consciousness. The true impediment to growth, in Jung's view, wasn't the pain itself, but the refusal to acknowledge its source, the state of unconsciousness. Why does this century-old wisdom resonate so powerfully today? Because the modern world, for all its technological marvels, often leaves us feeling more fragmented and disconnected than ever. We are caught in loops of compulsive behavior. We numb our emotional landscapes. We flee from the very discomfort that signals a need for change. Jung not only diagnosed this societal malaise, but also offered a profound methodology for navigating our inner worlds, a way to understand the persistent ache of disconnection and to begin the journey of reconnection. He offers no easy fixes or superficial platitudes, but something far more valuable, an unflinching encounter with the truth of yourself. One of the most radical and transformative of Jung's revelations was the concept of a layer of the mind that is not unique to the individual, but is, in fact, a shared inheritance of all humanity. This is a vast, primordial reservoir of images, instincts, and patterns that shape our lives from beneath the surface of our personal awareness. In the ensuing exploration, we will venture into this enigmatic realm, what Jung named the collective unconscious, and you may discover that the inner landscape you thought was solely yours is, in fact, populated by figures and forces far older and more universal than you ever imagined. Most of us operate under the assumption that our inner world, our thoughts, feelings, fears, and aspirations, is a product of our unique biography, our upbringing, our cultural context, our personal successes and failures. Carl Jung proposed a far more expansive and, for many, startling idea, that beneath this layer of personal experience lies a deeper, more ancient stratum of the psyche, one that is collective, universal, and profoundly influential. He termed this the collective unconscious. Picture your conscious mind, the part of you that you identify as I, as a small, well-lit room. This room contains your personal memories, your learned behaviors, your conscious beliefs. Now, imagine that this room is built upon a vast, ancient foundation, a sprawling complex of interconnected chambers and corridors that stretch far beyond your personal dwelling, connecting to all other such rooms. This deeper structure is the collective unconscious. It is not empty. It is teeming with the psychic residue of all human experience, the distilled wisdom and trauma of our ancestors. It's a boundless ocean beneath the island of individual consciousness, an ocean rich with symbols, myths, and archetypes, fundamental patterns of human thought and behavior that have been repeated across cultures and epochs. These aren't abstract philosophical constructs. The collective unconscious manifests tangibly in our world, in the recurring motifs found in global myths and legends, in the universal symbols that appear in dreams and art, in the instinctive responses and deep-seated fears that seem to have no direct personal origin. Why do disparate cultures, separated by vast distances and timelines, develop such strikingly similar stories of heroes and dragons, wise old mentors, perilous journeys, and ultimate redemption? Jung suggested these are not mere coincidences or cultural borrowings, but rather expressions of underlying archetypal structures inherent in the human psyche itself. When you experience a profound, seemingly irrational fear, or a deep, inexplicable pull towards a certain person, place, or idea, you might be touching upon these ancient currents. The drive to find meaning, to connect, to transcend limitations. These are not just personal whims. They are echoes of archetypal imperatives that have animated humanity for eons. To remain ignorant of the collective unconscious is akin to a sailor being unaware of the deep ocean currents and prevailing winds. You might think you are steering your own course, but powerful unseen forces are undoubtedly shaping your journey. But what precisely are these forms that populate this shared psychic inheritance? Who are these invisible architects of our experience? Jung gave them a specific name: archetypes. These are universal, primordial images and patterns of behavior that reside within the collective unconscious of all human beings. They act as organizing principles, shaping how we perceive the world, how we react emotionally, and the kinds of stories we live out. And among these myriad archetypes, there is one that is particularly potent, often the most resisted, the most misunderstood, and consequently the most influential in its hidden state. It is an intimate part of you, and as long as it remains unexamined, it will continue to exert a profound, often disruptive influence over your life. We will soon turn our attention to this figure, the shadow, that part of your personality you'd rather not acknowledge, yet which follows you, silently observing your every move. Have you ever found yourself acting in a way that, upon reflection, felt alien to your sense of self? Perhaps a sudden, disproportionate surge of anger, a cutting remark you instantly regretted, or a choice that seemed to undermine your own best interests. Have you noticed certain emotions, perhaps envy, profound insecurity, or a biting cynicism, that you quickly suppress or rationalize away? If so, you've had a brush with your shadow. It's that part of you that you didn't just meet, but have likely been avoiding, perhaps for a lifetime. Carl Jung proposed that each of us possesses a shadow aspect, a repository for all the traits, impulses, and desires we deem unacceptable, and therefore repress, deny, or project onto others. It's the sum total of everything you've been taught to disown in order to be loved, accepted, or to simply survive within your family, culture, or society. Think of the spontaneous child who was told to be quiet, the assertive adolescent who was labeled rebellious, the vulnerable adult who learned to feign indifference. All those disavowed parts don't simply vanish. They coalesce in the unconscious, forming the shadow. And here lies a critical insight. The more vigorously you attempt to suppress or deny these aspects, the more power they accumulate in the darkness. The shadow doesn't cease to exist when ignored. It merely becomes more cunning, more autonomous. It manifests indirectly in the harsh judgments you cast upon others, often recognizing in them the very traits you deny in yourself, in the inexplicable moods that descend upon you, in the patterns of self-sabotage that derail your progress just when success seems within reach, in that persistent inner critic that whispers of your inadequacy. A peculiar dynamic often emerges. The more one strives for an image of pure goodness or perfection, the denser and more dangerous the shadow can become. This is because the individual becomes increasingly blind to their own capacity for negativity, for selfishness, for aggression, for resentment. Unable to see these qualities within, they project them outward, seeing a world populated by villains and threats, while remaining oblivious to the unacknowledged darkness stirring within their own psyche. Jung's famous admonition, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate," speaks directly to this. As long as the shadow remains unintegrated, you are, in a sense, its puppet, destined to repeat painful patterns, attract damaging relationships, and feel perpetually thwarted, attributing it all to external misfortune rather than internal dynamics. But the shadow is not inherently evil or solely destructive. It is also a source of immense untapped energy, vitality, and creativity, the raw, instinctual life force that had to be curtailed. Confronting the shadow is not about annihilating it, but about integrating it. This means courageously acknowledging these disowned parts, understanding their origins, and finding constructive ways to express their underlying energies. It is within this challenging, often uncomfortable, confrontation that true self-knowledge and personal growth begin. Jung identified this profound journey of integrating the conscious and unconscious, including the shadow, as the process of individuation, a difficult, lifelong path, yet arguably the most crucial one for anyone seeking genuine freedom and wholeness. We will next explore what this journey of individuation truly entails and why it is the only authentic path to becoming the individual you were meant to be, moving beyond a fragmented existence towards an integrated self. Many individuals navigate their lives like actors meticulously following a script written by external expectations. The desires of parents, the demands of society, the pressures of cultural norms. They adapt, conform, and often numb themselves to dull the persistent ache of a life that doesn't feel entirely their own. Beneath the surface of conformity, however, often lies a profound sense of emptiness, a nagging awareness that something vital is missing. Carl Jung identified this missing element as the realization of one's unique self, achieved through the arduous process he called individuation. Individuation is not a quick fix, nor is it aligned with the superficial promises of much contemporary self-help culture, which often focuses on merely optimizing a socially acceptable version of oneself or manifesting external desires. Instead, individuation is the deeply challenging, often painful, yet ultimately rewarding journey of becoming a psychologically whole and distinct individual. It involves the courageous confrontation with one's shadow, the conscious integration of the internal opposites that Jung believed characterized the psyche, such as thinking and feeling, sensation and intuition, masculine and feminine principles, and a reconnection with the deepest core of one's being, the self. It means daring to peel away the layers of the persona, the social mask we present to the world, to discover and embody the authentic self that resides beneath. To individuate is, in a sense, to allow the outdated, conditioned parts of yourself to die so that a more genuine, integrated self can be born. This often involves the shattering of cherished illusions about oneself and the world, a dismantling of the ego's defenses. It is the painstaking work of acknowledging and embracing the parts of your psyche that have been denied, ignored, or projected for years, even decades. It means accepting the uncomfortable truth that you are a complex amalgam of light and darkness, strength and vulnerability, virtue and imperfection. There's a crucial aspect of this journey that is often understated. It is frequently accompanied by significant discomfort and psychic pain. True transformation requires letting go of the familiar narratives and defense mechanisms, however maladaptive, that once provided a sense of security. It demands that you cease outsourcing blame for your circumstances and instead take profound responsibility for your inner life and your responses to the outer world. It necessitates a shift from living primarily for external validation to living from a place of inner integrity and wholeness. Individuation is not a singular event, but a lifelong process, often catalyzed by significant life crises, losses, betrayals, failures, or periods of profound disillusionment. These are the moments when the old structures of the ego begin to crumble, creating an opening for something new to emerge. However, this emergence is contingent upon a willingness to navigate the ensuing uncertainty, doubt, and emotional turbulence. Jung himself noted that the encounter with the self is often experienced by the ego as a defeat, a necessary humbling. Consequently, many shy away from this path, preferring the perceived safety of the known, however unfulfilling. But for those who find the courage to embark on this inward journey, the reward is immeasurable, a profound sense of authenticity, freedom, and connection to a deeper purpose. By integrating the rejected fragments of the psyche, by heeding the call of the soul, you begin to embody the unique individual you were always meant to be, but perhaps never dared to become. And the soul, this deep inner core, has its own ways of communicating. It doesn't typically speak in logical prose or straightforward directives. Its language is that of symbols, images, and narratives. It speaks most vividly, perhaps, in the theater of your dreams. If you can learn to listen with a new kind of attention, you may uncover insights and guidance that your rational mind alone could never provide. Next, we will delve into this mysterious domain, exploring what Jung referred to as the symbolic language of the psyche, and consider why your dreams might hold vital keys to your ongoing transformation. In a world that often dismisses dreams as mere neurological static or meaningless replays of daily anxieties, Carl Jung stood in stark opposition. He regarded dreams not as random psychic noise, but as purposeful communications from the unconscious, potent messages coded in a rich symbolic language. Every night, as the conscious mind relinquishes its hold, a deeper intelligence within you awakens and seeks to express itself. The challenge, Jung believed, lies in our collective illiteracy in this ancient symbolic tongue. Jung viewed dreams as vital mechanisms through which the psyche attempts to restore balance and promote wholeness. When our conscious attitude becomes too one-sided, too rigid, or too disconnected from our deeper needs and truths, the unconscious compensates by sending forth dreams filled with images, scenarios, archetypal figures, and symbols. These are all designed, in their own intricate way, to draw our attention back towards a more centered, integrated state. Dreams, therefore, are not just passive reflections of waking life. They are active interventions, offering guidance, posing questions, issuing warnings, and sometimes even providing profound revelations. Consider the persistent nature of certain dream motifs. Why might you dream of being pursued when you are avoiding a crucial confrontation in your waking life? Why might images of crumbling structures appear when your foundational beliefs are being shaken? Why do particular symbols or figures recur with such insistence, sometimes over years or even decades? This is not arbitrary. This is the psyche's persistent effort to communicate something vital. However, the unconscious does not communicate in the direct, literal language of the conscious, rational mind. Its preferred medium is the symbol, and herein lies one of Jung's most significant contributions, his profound exploration of archetypal symbolism. Figures like the sage, the trickster, the great mother, or the hero, animals like snakes, birds, or lions, settings like forests, oceans, or labyrinthine houses, objects like keys, swords, or mirrors. These do not populate our dreamscapes by accident. They are symbolic representations of different facets of our psyche, fragments of our soul striving for recognition and integration. Each symbol carries a certain energy, a potential meaning. A journey in a dream, for instance, might symbolize your life's path or a particular psychological transition. A confrontation with a monstrous figure could represent an encounter with your own unacknowledged shadow. Jung believed that the more we disregard the symbolic messages of our dreams, the more we risk becoming estranged from our own deepest nature. And when this inner compass is ignored, we tend to lose our way. We may experience crises, fall into states of anxiety or depression, or feel a pervasive sense of disorientation and meaninglessness. Dreams are a direct line to this inner guidance system. To ignore them is to choose to navigate the complexities of life with a crucial sense of direction deliberately obscured. If you genuinely seek to understand who you are at a deeper level, to unravel the reasons behind your repetitive patterns, your persistent anxieties, or your feelings of stagnation, then turn your attention to your dreams. Record them, reflect upon them, engage with their symbols. They contain wisdom that your conscious intellect, for all its capabilities, may not be able to access on its own. Yet, dreams are not the sole domain where these potent symbols and ancient patterns manifest. There is a deeper, more foundational layer of the psyche, where even more powerful forces, the archetypes themselves, hold sway. These are the invisible scripts, the unseen directors that shape the drama of your life, often while you believe you are entirely in conscious control. We will now uncover who these archetypes are and how they mold your emotions, decisions, and relationships from beneath the surface of awareness. Have you ever found yourself caught in a dynamic, a way of behaving or reacting that feels almost preordained, as if you're playing a role in a drama not entirely of your own making? Do you notice yourself repeatedly drawn to similar types of people, or find yourself reenacting familiar emotional scenarios, even when you consciously desire a different outcome? Carl Jung offered a profound explanation for these pervasive patterns. Within the human psyche reside powerful invisible forces, akin to innate psychic blueprints that not only influence our choices but often seem to direct the entire play of our lives. These fundamental structures he called archetypes. Archetypes are not concepts you acquire through learning or cultural osmosis. They are universal ancestral patterns inherent in the very structure of the human psyche, passed down through millennia as part of our shared human inheritance. They dwell in the collective unconscious and function as instinctual templates that shape our perceptions, emotions, behaviors, and the narratives we construct about our lives. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect is that you can live your entire life under the profound influence of one or several archetypes without ever consciously recognizing their operation. Jung identified numerous such archetypes. For instance, the hero archetype embodies the drive to overcome adversity, to strive for great achievements, and to confront challenges. The wise old man or woman represents the quest for knowledge, wisdom, and discernment. The shadow, as we've discussed, encompasses all that is repressed and denied within us. The anima, the inner feminine in men, and animus, the inner masculine in women, represent contrasexual aspects that require conscious integration for psychological wholeness. Others include the persona, the social mask, the child, the mother, the trickster, and many more. These archetypes are not mere intellectual curiosities. They are imbued with potent psychic energy. When a particular archetype is activated within an individual's psyche, often triggered by life circumstances or developmental stages, it can effectively possess the conscious personality. It can take control, guiding thoughts, feelings, and actions, often without the individual's awareness or consent. This is why at times you might feel as if you are not entirely yourself, or why you might find yourself irresistibly drawn into relational dynamics that seem to follow a script written long ago. You are, in those moments, living out the drama of an activated archetype. Consider the individual who compulsively rescues others, often to their own detriment. They may be under the sway of an unexamined hero archetype. Someone perpetually seeking external validation and fearing abandonment might be ensnared by the wounded child archetype. An individual who seems consistently drawn to chaotic or self-destructive situations could be unconsciously acting out aspects of an unintegrated shadow or a disruptive trickster. Crucially, archetypes themselves are not inherently good or bad. They are neutral patterns of potential. When they operate unconsciously, they can be tyrannical, limiting our freedom and locking us into repetitive, often painful cycles. However, when these archetypal forces are recognized, consciously engaged with, and integrated, they become sources of immense power, creativity, and wisdom. They transform from unseen puppeteers into valuable allies and guides. By learning to identify these inner voices, these symbolic patterns, these mythic forces that manifest in your relationships, your reactions, and your deepest desires, you begin to shift from being a mere character in a predetermined play to becoming a more conscious co-author of your own life story. It is precisely at this juncture that Jung's insights acquire an even greater urgency. We are living in an era characterized by unprecedented levels of external stimulation, distraction, and societal pressure, all of which conspire to pull us away from our inner center, disconnecting us from the deeper currents of our being. The result is often a pervasive sense of emptiness, a crisis of meaning, a spiritual hunger that manifests as widespread stress, anxiety, and depression. In our next reflection, we will explore why Jung's ideas are not just historically significant, but more profoundly relevant today than ever before, offering vital perspectives on the psychological turbulence of modern existence. We are immersed in an age of relentless information flow, yet paradoxically, we often find ourselves more adrift and disoriented than any generation before us. We have unparalleled access to knowledge and connection, yet we frequently wander through our lives feeling fragmented, stressed, and pervasively unfulfilled. Modernity promised unprecedented freedom, but for many, it has delivered a heightened state of anxiety. It dangled the prospect of global community, yet often we find ourselves mired in superficial interactions and the corrosive effects of social comparison. Amidst this cacophony of external stimuli, a silent, desperate question echoes in the inner chambers of countless individuals. Who am I, really, beneath all these layers of expectation and performance? It is precisely in this contemporary crucible of confusion and longing that the work of Carl Jung emerges not merely as relevant, but as profoundly essential. Jung did not peddle simplistic formulas for happiness, nor did he promise effortless success through sheer force of will. What he offered was something far more substantial and enduring. A meticulously charted pathway back to the soul, a methodology for reintegrating those aspects of our being that have been neglected, suppressed, or distorted by a society increasingly fixated on external achievement, superficial appearance, and constant productivity. Decades ago, Jung foresaw the potential for a widespread collapse of authentic identity. He observed how modern individuals could become increasingly identified with their persona, the carefully curated social mask adopted for acceptance, admiration, or advancement, at the expense of their true self. He understood that by systematically ignoring the shadow, we inadvertently become enslaved by the very forces we pretend not to possess. He knew that by dismissing the wisdom of our dreams, we sever a vital connection to the unconscious. And by deriding the significance of symbols and archetypes, we discard the very map that could guide us through the labyrinth of our own being. Jung's writings from the early to mid-20th century read like an uncanny diagnosis of our 21st century malaise. Individuals feeling hollow despite an abundance of material possessions and external accomplishments. Relationships becoming increasingly transactional and disposable, existential crises striking people at ever younger ages, and an explosion of anxiety, depression, and various psychological disorders that conventional approaches struggle to fully comprehend, let alone heal. The modern world has often promoted the illusion that we can thrive by living solely on the surface, engaging only with the rational and the tangible. But the soul, as Jung understood it, will not be indefinitely ignored. When its needs for meaning, depth, and integration are consistently unmet, it protests. And its protests are not requests for more likes or followers. They are urgent pleas for authenticity and connection to something larger than the ego. Jung, therefore, was not a psychologist for tranquil times. He was, and remains, a guide for periods of profound upheaval and transition. Times very much like our own. Because when the external scaffolding of meaning, status, success, control begins to feel unstable or insufficient, the only recourse is to turn inward. This inward journey can indeed be daunting. Within, you will encounter not only your potential for light and creativity, but also your capacity for darkness, your unhealed traumas, your carefully constructed defenses, and many uncomfortable truths. Yet, it is also in these depths that you will find something that no external achievement or validation can ever bestow: your authentic, resilient self. You will not mend your life with borrowed affirmations or superficial shortcuts. However, if you can summon the courage to truly face yourself, to dismantle the illusions, to immerse yourself in this challenging, transformative process that Jung called individuation, then genuine hope for healing and wholeness emerges. This very exploration is intended as a reminder. There is a path through the chaos. Your pain, your restlessness, often carries profound meaning. You are not fundamentally broken. You are perhaps beautifully complex and currently fragmented, holding within you the innate capacity to rebuild and reintegrate. But what does this mean in practical terms? How does one embark on this journey from intellectual understanding to tangible transformation? In our concluding reflections, we will address this, offering a raw and necessary truth, and consider why this encounter with Jung's ideas could be the pivotal moment your soul has been patiently awaiting. You have likely spent a significant portion of your life attempting to navigate the complex demands of your world, striving to fit in, to shield yourself from pain, to secure a sense of belonging. Perhaps you've presented a facade of strength even when internally you felt on the verge of collapse. You may have offered smiles to the world while a storm of unexpressed emotion raged within. And somewhere amidst these adaptations and compromises, it's possible you lost a clear sense of who you truly are. You may have forgotten the unique cadence of your own essence, your innate creativity, your inherent wildness, the quiet but insistent voice of your soul. But now, something within you, perhaps a long dormant part, has begun to stir. It is no mere accident that you find yourself engaging with these ideas. Jung himself held a profound belief in synchronicity, the meaningful coincidence of inner and outer events, suggesting that even seemingly random encounters can be orchestrated by the unconscious, attempting to guide you towards a crucial insight or a necessary turning point. Perhaps this exploration has served as such a signal, a summons to cease the endless cycle of running from yourself, a call to halt the self-deception, an invitation to abandon the shallows and plunge into the profound depths of your own psyche. The wisdom that Carl Jung offers is not always comforting because it demands of us an uncommon courage. It often involves traversing landscapes of emotional discomfort. It insists upon a radical assumption of personal responsibility. Yet, within this demand lies its liberating power. The moment you truly grasp that you are not intrinsically flawed, but rather operating from a place of limited consciousness, you reclaim an immense power, the power to transform, to integrate, to heal from within. You don't need to have all the answers right now. You don't need to instantly decipher every dream or identify every archetype at play in your life. But what is essential is the willingness to take that first, crucial step. The step of unflinching honesty. The step that says, enough. Enough of living on autopilot, tethered to unconscious patterns. Enough of denying or numbing your authentic feelings. Enough of being a captive to a superficial, curated version of yourself, while your true self yearns for expression. From this moment of recognition, the potential for profound change unfolds. Because now you are aware, and what has been brought from the darkness into the light of awareness can no longer wield the same invisible power over you. Consider this an invitation If any of these ideas have resonated with a part of you that felt dormant or unheard, take a moment to acknowledge it. Reflect on which insights have challenged you most directly. Which aspect of your own shadow do you intuitively know requires your attention? Even if the prospect feels daunting, simply articulating these nascent recognitions, even to yourself, is an act of bringing consciousness to the unconscious. And this, in itself, is the very genesis of liberation. The journey inward is not a one-time event. It is a lifelong pilgrimage. And the soul, once awakened to its own depths, develops an insatiable thirst for deeper understanding and connection. This exploration is merely a waypoint, a signpost indicating a path that stretches onward, inviting you to continue the dive. You are, perhaps, only at the very beginning of what could be the most significant and rewarding transformation of your life. Thanks for watching. If this resonated, please like this video and subscribe to stay updated. I look forward to continuing this journey with you. Until next time, take care and be present.